Let's talk about when to go with finesse for bass fishing. Welcome back to the Googan Lab. You know, finesse fishing used to be a technique that not everyone used, and the guys that really knew it, they just kind of swept up. But it seems like everyone now has to have a little bit of finesse fishing in their back pocket when they're going bass fishing these days. So let's talk about when do you want to go with finesse. Obviously, you want to swing out of the gate at first if fish are biting a big worm, a big crankbait, they're eating a big old top water, they're eating spinner baits and all of that fun stuff. You obviously want to throw the meat and potatoes at them when they're eating that and get those fish that are bigger and they're eating all that stuff. But when is it a good time to switch over to the smaller baits and kind of take your time and pick those things apart? Well, one of the big things is when you're fishing an area that has a lot of fishing pressure. So this could be a lake or a pond or whatever, so something that has a lot of people that live around there and they do a lot of bass fishing. There's certain areas that bass, no matter what, they just want to be there. You know, take a marina, for example, with a lot of docks in it that holds a lot of bait, a lot of cover. Those are areas that are going to get high traffic from anglers, but it's also a place where fish are going to replenish and want to go back there and live there, but they see a ton of lures. So the big baits, the fun stuff, not to say finesse isn't fun, but the bigger baits that you can usually throw, they may not always work. They may work when it's like low pressure and they're feeding really good, but your standard day, it may be time to break out the finesse. Another time that you want to break out finesse is when bait fish become smaller. This happens throughout the year. Shad usually have a couple different spawns. If you're seeing a lot of small bait, and particularly if you're seeing bass that are either spitting up smaller bait or you see them being chased, that's when you want to go finesse as well. They get zoned in on eating those smaller things or eating a lot of them, but they're wanting that smaller size. So that's when you want to go finesse as well. One more instance on when to go finesse is if you have really clear water conditions. The fish they could see your 10-inch plastic worm, your bigger swim bait, all of these, crankbaits, spinner baits, vibrating jigs, regular jigs, these bigger meat and potatoes type things that work really well in stained water. They may not work as well in clear water. They want something very natural and small that's just non-intimidating, and it's just very, very easy meal for them to eat, and it doesn't put them off like some of the bigger baits do. So those are the three situations where I'm gonna throw finesse. So let's dive a little bit deeper on finesse fishing. What is the first thing everyone thinks of? It's a drop shot. Yes, finesse fishing with drop shots is very productive. When do I like to fish them? I love fishing drop shots when the bigger worms, the bigger plastics stop working on cover. If I'm fishing brush piles beginning of summer, May, June, even July, I'm throwing a big mondo worm, I'm throwing a big trench hog, I'm throwing deep diving crankbait. And after a while, those baits are seen a lot. A lot of times fish go back to the same brush piles, same types of cover. So that's when a drop shot becomes really handy. You can actually rig these up where they don't get hung up in brush. I sometimes call it a Texas shot, but we have a new style hook. It's available in our terminal that you can rig these where your hook isn't all the way through. So that's a way that you can fish in this brush. You can fish it around the docks, not get hung up with that nose hook technique, and you can catch those same fish that you were catching on the bigger worms, the jigs, and all that they were biting beginning of summer, late summer. Finesse fishing with that little drop shot hook becomes key. Another way to finesse fish is just downsizing your baits. So go with your junior sizes. I like to throw a junior size mondo worm sometimes. I really love throwing the junior size trench hog on a dragging style head or putting on a shaky head, things like that. I'll go with a Ned rig, like a rattling Ned, and I'll fish those in the same type things that I was fishing, half ounce, 3/4 ounce jigs, football jigs, dragging bigger worms through. I'll downsize to those. Lastly, another sneaky finesse fishing technique is throwing a small swim bait. This is something that smallmouth fishermen do all the time, and it's very successful with smallmouth. But for us largemouth fishermen, we mostly fish for largemouth down in the south year round. Fishing a smaller swim bait, like a 3.3 or a 2.8, something that's really small, like on a 1/4 ounce head, throwing it on spinning gear. You can cast it a long ways. You can hit schooling fish with it that are just feeding on real small bait fish. You can skip it up under docks, marinas, things like that, where you can't get your bigger baits. Just throwing it on that lighter tackle and that lighter little swim bait. It's just an easy morsel for them to come up and grab, and it works really well, especially in the summertime when things get tough. So those are some scenarios that I'm gonna break out finesse fishing tackle and some techniques that I like to use when things get tough. So if you wanna see more tips and tricks, subscribe right here to the Googan Lab, and we'll see you next time.